everyone, it's Hannah from Hand Jam Crochet, and today we are making these lovely crochet pumpkins together. Now the pattern comes with 4 different sizes and we're going to be making the medium size here today on camera, but you'll be able to apply the same principles to each of the sizes in the written pattern. I'll put the links in the description below for where you can find that pattern and all the materials that you'll need as well, but let's go through those now too. To make the pumpkins then, I have chosen to use this Starlette yarn from Maxim. It's a worsted weight, 100% acrylic, comes in really lovely colours, and the colour I have here today is, she says, mid-green. That's the colour we're using today for the medium size. Along with your yarn, you're going to need a 5mm crochet hook or the hook that matches the gauge for you. Then you'll need a pair of scissors, a needle for your ends, a small amount of stuffing or whatever you would like to stuff yours with. You can use anything you like. And then I used a cinnamon stick to pop on the top, and then also maybe a little piece of ribbon or something to go around the neck of the cinnamon stick. So go grab your supplies and then we'll get making. So don't worry, you haven't missed anything. I just wanted to show you before we begin the actual fabric that we're going to create. So we've got these lovely faux cable sections here. We do more on one repeat of it than we do on the next repeat of it. And essentially we're just going to make a nice rectangle that then we're going to turn into this pumpkin. So let's get going. Now each of the pumpkins are going to begin with a slip knot on the hook, and then chaining out a certain amount of chains. And so for this size, this medium, we're going to chain 29. So once you've got the length of chain that you need for your size, we're going to start by working a yarn over slip stitch in the second chain from the hook and each along. Now I like to work in the back bumps of my chains, so I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to go into that back bump here, and then I'm just going to yarn over and I'm going to pull through everything. And I will say this first one is the hardest one to do because you don't have much space. So from now on, it'll be a lot easier. We're going to yarn over, go into that back bump of the next one, yarn over, and then pull through everything. And you just work that all the way along this row. Okay, so now we have that first row completed, we're going to turn and start to work row 2, which is going to begin our faux cable section. And we're going to start by chaining 1, and then we're going to do a half double crochet in the back loop only of the first 2 stitches. Now I did that one so fast and I do apologise. Let's look at the top of the stitch and then figure out where that back loop is. In fact, you can see if I give it a tug, that's where I've done it. So the top of the stitch has this V here, and what we're going to do is we're going to go into the back loop only of that V at the top of your stitch. So that's into the back loop of the first 2 stitches. Now we're now going to start working our faux cable section, which means we're going to do a half double crochet in the back loop only of the next 5. So work away along the next 5. And then because we're going to work these in short rows, rather unusually, we're going to turn at this point. So now we're going to work into the 3rd loop only in this section here, which is the very, very first loop that we come to. But we're going to start working in the 2nd stitch away from us. So we're going to skip this first stitch, and then we're going to work into the 3rd loop of the next 4 stitches. So here's that first one. 1, 2, 3, and then 4. And now we're ready to turn again, and it looks weird and wonderful, I know, but I promise, stick with me. So now we're ready to chain 1, and now we're going to work into the back loop only of these 4 stitches that we just worked there. So we'll work a half double crochet in each of those. And now we've run out of stitches, but we need to get ourselves down to here now. So what we're going to do is we're going to work a half double crochet into the side of that 5th stitch that we have here. So we go into this stitch here, working into the side. That's a half double crochet. Then next we need to work a half double crochet 2 together in, I'm going to give it a yank so you can see, the back loop there of the one that we've already worked into and the back loop only of the next one. So I'm going to begin a half double crochet there, and then I'm going to begin another half double crochet in the back loop of the next one. Then I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to pull through all of them there. That's my dog walking around, sorry everyone. Now we need to continue along thinking in terms of 6 stitches. So we've just done those there. So we're going to work in the back loop only of the next 5. So we have 1. So then once you've done those 5, as we did before, we are going to turn and we're going to skip that first stitch. And then in the 3rd loop only, we're going to work a half double crochet in 4. There's 1, 2, 3, and that's 4. And then, unlike we did before, because we needed to turn at that point, we're going to actually slip stitch into the 3rd loop of the next stitch that we have here, just to join those up. Then we'll be ready to turn. Now, ignoring that slip stitch that you've just done, we're now going to work a half double crochet in the back loop only of those 4 stitches that we just made. Now once you've got those 4 stitches, we're going to again go into the side of this stitch that we have here. So a half double crochet goes into the side of that one. And then we're going to half double crochet 2 together over this one that's already been worked in and the back loop only of the next one. So those 6 stitches that we have just done there forms the repeat for this row now. And so for this size, we're going to repeat that another 2 more times. And then at the end, you'll be left with 2 stitches. So if you work your way to those last 2 stitches, and then I'll just show you what we do and then how to turn the row. Now here we are with those last 2 stitches left, and I'm just going to work a half double crochet in the back loop only of each of those, and that completes our row 2. Okay, so at the end of row 2 I have turned my work, and now to begin row 3, I've got an awful lot of a puddle of yarn there, haven't I? To begin row 3 I'm going to chain 1, and now I'm going to work a half double crochet in the back loop only of the first 2 stitches that we have here. So that's the first one and that's this second one. And now we come to our sets of 6 stitches that we did that faux cable stitch for. And these 6 stitches, all of the sets get the same stitches in them. So we're going to be working in the 3rd loop of these stitches. So it's the loop that comes very first at us, not if we turn it on, it turns the front or the back. It's going to be this 3rd loop that we find here. And so we're going to go into the 3rd loop of this next stitch we come to, and we're going to work a half double crochet in that one. And that's one of our 6. And then for the next 5 stitches, we're going to work into the 3rd loop again, and we're going to work a yarn over slip stitch. So we work yarn over slip stitch in that 3rd loop of the next 5. And now you're going to carry on working that up until you get to this last stitch here of our sets of 6 stitches, sorry. So work a yarn over slip stitch in that last stitch there of the faux cable, and then you'll have 2 stitches left at the end, and then meet me back and I'll show you what we do at the end of the row. So here I am on that last yarn over slip stitch, and what we now need to do is get down to these last 2 stitches of the row. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to work a half double crochet 2 together over the side of this faux cable stitch and into the back loop only of the next one. Now that looks like this. We're going to yarn over and go into the side of this stitch that we have here. We'll yarn over and pull through, and then we'll yarn over again, and then we'll go into the back loop only of the next stitch that we have along the row, yarn over and pull through everything. And then we just work a half double crochet in the back loop only of the next one. So those are the last 2 stitches of that row that we have there. So that's the end of row 3. Now we're ready to turn. And row 4 is nice and easy. We're going to chain 1 and then we're going to work a half double crochet in the back loop only of all of our stitches along the row. Okay, so at the end of row 4, we are going to turn, ready for row 5, and I'm going to chain 1 and then I'm going to yarn over slip stitch in the back loop only of each across. So we twist here to go into that back loop and work our yarn over slip stitch in the back loop only of each of these stitches. And that's all we need to do for row 5. So that's row 5 completed, and I have turned, and I'm going to begin row 6, which is very similar to row 2, but we're going to begin to start with by chaining 1 and then working a slip stitch in the back loop only of 8. So we're not going to work this first repeat of the faux cable stitch. We're going to work slip stitches in the back loop only first. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8. And then when we've done those 8, we're then ready to start working our 6 stitch repeats of these faux cable stitches. So if you remember, we work a half double crochet in the back loop only of 5. And then we're going to turn. We're going to skip that first stitch that we've got here, and then in the next 4 we're going to work a half double crochet in the 3rd loop only. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then just as before we're going to turn, and the first time we do this faux cable stitch we're going to chain 1. Then we're going to work in the back loop only of the 4 that we've just made. Then we're going to work a half double crochet in the side of that stitch that we have here. And then a half double crochet 2 together in the one that's already got a stitch worked into it and the back loop only of the next one. And then for this time we only need to do that once more, so we're going to go half double crochet in 5, we're going to turn, skip that first stitch and then work a half double crochet in the 3rd loop of the next 4. Then we're going to slip stitch in the 3rd loop of the next. Then we're ready to turn. We ignore that slip stitch and then we work a half double crochet in the back loop only of 4. A half double crochet in the side of that next stitch, and then a half double crochet 2 together in the one that's joined and the back loop of the next. And then that will leave us with 8 stitches at the end here, and we're going to work a slip stitch in the last 8. In the back loop only, sorry, I should have said. And then we're ready to turn and work row 7. Now row 7 begins and ends with slip stitches again. So we're going to chain 1, we're going to slip stitch in the back loop only of 8. And then we come to the repeat of this part of the faux cable. We're going to work a half double crochet in the third loop of the next stitch. And then we're going to work a yarn over slip stitch in the third loop of the next 5. We repeat that again, so a half double crochet in the third loop of the next, and then a yarn over slip stitch in the third loop of the next 5. Then what we need to do is get down to these last 8 stitches. So just as we did before, we're going to work into the side of the faux cable stitch, but we're actually going to work a slip stitch 2 together. So we're going to pull up that loop there, and then we're going to work into the back loop only of the next stitch that we come to. So slip stitch 2 together there, and then you're going to work a slip stitch in the back loop only of the remaining 7 stitches. Then we're going to turn because we're ready to work row 8, and we're going to chain 1. We're going to slip stitch in the first 8 stitches, and then we're going to half double crochet in the back loop only of each stitch up until the last 8. So that will differ obviously for the size that you're making, because it will be smaller or wider. But essentially we just half double crochet in each of these back loops up until you get to the last 8 stitches, and those will be the slip stitches that we did on the previous row. Then when we get to those slip stitches, you're going to work a slip stitch in the back loop only of each of them to the end. And that's the end of row 8. Now we need to turn, and for row 9 it's just as we've done before. We're going to chain 1, and then we're going to yarn over slip stitch in the back loop only of each stitch across. So all we now need to do is keep repeating rows 2 to 9, just bearing in mind that the last time we need to finish on row 8. So keep repeating rows 2 to 9, and then the final time you're going to repeat rows 2 to 8. And then when you've got to either the measurements that I've suggested in the written pattern or the measurement that you'd like it to be, come back to me and I'll show you how we seam it and join it and finish it off. Okay, so here I am having repeated and then finished on a row 8 of the repeat. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to join this first row to this last row. And I'm going to do that with now the wrong side facing up at me. And I'm going to use a slip stitch seam to join them. So I'm going to chain 1, and then you can pick any loop that you want to join them with. It's absolutely fine, but I'm going to go into this back loop here of this one, and then into the back loop as it is looking at me of this one. So you're just going to seam along. There'll be the same number of stitches on this first and the last row. So just join them up stitch for stitch using a slip stitch seam and continuing with the yarn that you've got working. Okay, so once you've got that all seamed and joined, we're now going to rotate so that we can then work around the base of the pumpkin here and just decrease it slightly to pull it in. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to work a single crochet in the side of every other end, row end around, sorry. So if you look at it like this, we have this section here, we'll get 2. So every repeat that we did of the faux cable section needs 2 single crochet into the end of it. So I'm just going to begin working 1 there and then 1 in that next part there. So you don't have to be too hard and fast about this, just as long as you make sure that you end up with the right number as you go around, which for this size is going to be 16. So when you've worked all the way around, then we're going to decrease once more. So we've got another round to work here, and we're going to single crochet 2 together all the way around. So we're going to begin a single crochet in that first one, and then we're going to finish it off in that next one. So you're going to work that all the way around. So you're going to decrease the number of stitches by half. So I started with 16 there, and I'm going to end up with 8. Then when you've worked all the way around of those, I'm going to slip stitch in that first stitch to join, and then wherever my scissors are, there they are, I'll grab my scissors and I will break that yarn. It doesn't need to be terribly long, just long enough to weave this end in with. So then this is going to be the base of the pumpkin. So we're going to work around this last round that we worked, and we're just going to pull it tight so that it closes the bottom of our pumpkin. And don't worry about the fact we haven't stuffed yet. We're going to stuff from the top, so don't worry about that now at all. So I've made that end secure now, and now I've turned so that we have the right side facing us, and now is the time to stuff our pumpkin. So grab whatever it is that you would like to use and pop it in. Okay, so once you have got it stuffed to where you think you would like it to be, we're now going to grab a very long piece of yarn to sew the top together and then also sew the indents. So it's going to need to be fairly long. It's not the end of the world if you need to make another one, but I always try and make it as long as possible so that then I don't have to start with anything else. And in the top of this, we're now going to join this yarn wherever you would like to join it, and we're going to leave a slightly longish tail there so that you know where you are, and then I'm just going to weave around this edge to start pulling in that top. So go nice and steady, and that will begin to pull that in for you. Now, if you're going to use a cinnamon stick here at the top, as I have, you're going to need to leave just a little space at the top. But if you're not, then you can completely close this firmly shut. It's entirely up to you. But once you've gone all the way around, you can pull to however firmly shut you would like it to be, or not. And then what I've been doing is that I then tie this to the beginning, just so that that's nice and secure, ready for doing your indents. It's entirely up to you where you put them, but I have been putting them in this half double crochet row along before we get to the smaller faux cable section. It's entirely up to you, but the main thing is to make sure that you're consistent with your positioning, otherwise you'll have a wonky pumpkin. So all I've been doing is running it along underneath these stitches here of this row, because then you can hide it where this kind of ridge is here. So then I go under over one, sorry, and then under two, and this is incredibly hard to do on a flat surface, trying to make sure that my hands aren't in the way so that you can see what I'm doing. So there we go, pull that through, and I'm very dominantly right-handed, so just pulling it through even there with my left hand is challenging. But there we go, hopefully you get the idea, pulling it along through here all the way down to the base of the pumpkin. I'm just going to do a few at a time there now. And then when you get down to the base of the pumpkin, this is the point where you can pull that tight and it will create that indent for you. Then when you're happy with how that looks and how firmly you've pulled that in, then what I do is I just anchor it there, and then I will sew over that to hold that indent in place. And then all you need to do is then find the next set of rows where you want to do that, and you go up and repeat the process and go up and down and up and down. So that's it really. Once you are happy with your indents, you can then pop your cinnamon stick in, add your ribbon, decorate them however you would like them to be, and we are done.